Some of the content covered may be graphic in nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely it's really
Just, I love stories like this because it's
evolved to something scared to death.
Yeah,
that's a real thing. There are countless stories bad enough, sex trafficking,
you shouldn't fuck with.
right? And the JFK assassination limo.
Too real.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome from the Mistake on the Lake, deep within the Great American Rust Belt. This is T3TV. I'm your host, John Batinsky, alongside my faithful co-host, Steve Buddha Gibson.
Sup?
And back from the sabbatical, Mr. Daniel. I don't know your middle initial, Rady.
It's fucking Steven.
Is it?
Come on.
And Dan's audio has gone out again.
Dan is MIA.
He's in the room, but I don't know if he can hear us. Well, in typical Type 3 fashion, always technical difficulties.
Hard open.
Yeah. Dan, I don't know if you want to disconnect and reconnect, but you're cutting in and out. So, Buddha, it's been a couple of weeks. Almost the last show we did. It'll actually be almost 2
Hello,
months.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. What happened? You there?
Good answer.
He's popping in and out. I don't know what's going on with his phone. Dan? Dan has gone away. I'm not sure what's going on here. Hold on. Gary's saying... I'm getting a text from Gary. It's not relevant. Anyway, it's been about 2 months, Buddha, I think, since we've done this. I think the last show was August 2nd. Dan was on sabbatical. He's now popped back in the room. Let's try again. Dan, back to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was weird. I heard myself talking with a minute delay. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I'm obviously back, so.
All right. Well, welcome back.
I'm sure you just kept talking since you enjoy hearing the sound of your voice so much.
You know what? You quit picking on him. He's been back 5 freaking minutes.
Wait, hang on. Is El Barto really Larry?
Wait, Larry,
All right, don't everybody fucking answer at once. Larry Simpson?
No, what do you mean? I'm talking to
It
you.
cut
says,
out. I didn't
hey,
hear what
what's
you
up?
said.
It's me, Larry.
Yeah. Well, hello there, Lawrence. Lawrence of the Simpson. Welcome back. Thursday evening. But so Buddha Dan's been back for 5 minutes, 3 of which was not working properly, and the other 2 were you berating him. So
Yeah. What is up
Dan,
with that?
I know. Dan, welcome back
Yeah.
from your sabbatical. How was your summer?
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it. It was good. I did a lot of things. I did some, traveling. Didn't do everything I wanted to do. Some stuff kind of got all messed up, but worked on some music. Did a lot of exercising, bike rides, fun stuff like that.
Dan went on a couple of kayaking trips, and so I would
Yes.
say that it looks like he's forgotten leg day. But
Forgot
he's all-
what?
Leg day. Like you're all
Leg
jacked up
day.
on, like you're jacked up on the top, like you got giant muscles from rowing that boat.
Oh.
The
well,
show is
yeah.
off to a great start.
Yeah, try to keep up.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you back. We had
Thank
a
you.
bunch of great people fill in for you, and hopefully they'll be popping in and out here and there just to be a part of this. But shout out to Rob and Gary and Bean and who else popped in? Was that it? Al?
Pat, Al.
Yeah.
I would like to formally announce that I hate you all, and this is my last show.
Oh, all right.
Anyway, moving
All right.
on.
So how was your summer, or the last 2 months for you, Buddha?
Hot as shit.
Yeah, you worked outside most of the summer, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been outside probably 85% of the summer. It's weird. It hits like it comes to a point where like it starts to kind of get nice, and then you're like, God, I just wish I could work outside. And then you get that to that point, and you're outside, and then it just stays like 95 every day for the entire summer, and you're like, God, I wish I could work inside.
No, you make a good point too. Like, I've noticed, and we've talked about this several times before, but like the gradual change in seasons doesn't happen anymore. And I think about like last year, 2020, the last day it snowed in Cleveland was May 10th. And I always had, or no, I think it was May 12th, because I always used to set this thing in my mind where I'm like, okay, once we get past May 10th, it shouldn't snow again. Then it snowed 2 days after that. But I've noticed like you would go through this gradual temperature shift from like, you know, in increments of like 10 degrees over like the course of like 6 weeks to where, you know, you'd be in like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, 70s. And then it would, you know, peak right around the end of May or beginning of June, and you'd be like in the 70s and 80s throughout the rest of the summer, and then maybe 80s and 90s in August, and then it would start to slope back down. But I mean, last week it was almost 90 degrees, and today was like it was just around 50 something.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's just kind of, we don't really have a spring for sure, at least in Ohio. I mean, I don't know, you know, where everybody else is, but it also, especially like last year and the year before, actually the last couple of years, not as much this year, but it seems like once it gets into June, it just rains like nonstop.
Yeah, it's like almost like June,
August, you know?
Yeah, June has become April in some ways. But yeah, so it was nice. Like today, typically over like the last few shows, I've had to fire up like this air conditioner and then turn it off when we go on because the blower is just too loud. It sounds like I'm in an airplane. But today, not the case. So, anything else interesting happen over your summer?
No, nothing. Probably not any different than anybody else's with all the excitement going on.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Since the last time I've been on, I took like a road trip across the country. We went to, well, first we were just planning on going to Las Vegas, but then after they decided to implement all these mandates, we decided maybe we should just kind of stay away from people and just kind of enjoy the company of each other and the road and go sightseeing. So we decided to go to Mount Rushmore. Well, what is there to do on the way out to Mount Rushmore? So we looked up interesting places to stop on the road. And I always wanted to kind of see like the Rocky Mountains, like in person. And so we went and we were like, okay, let's go to Denver. And we ended up not going to Denver, but we stopped and stayed at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, which is where Stephen King got the idea to write The Shining. And so that was really cool. And we were just kind of like driving. I'm like, and we were listening to old O&A tapes, and they were, you know, doing impressions of Jack Nicholson where he's going crazy. And I was like, oh wait, isn't the Shining Hotel in Colorado? And we looked it up, and they didn't actually film The Shining at that hotel. Well, they did, but it was when they did the miniseries. But the Stanley Kubrick version, Stephen King did not like, so they decided to Stephen King lobbied to remake it or do a better like visualization of his book with ABC, and so they shot that there, and they also shot Dumb and Dumber there. But we took a tour of the place, and it was really cool too, because like they have this the Stanley. Their initial thing that got them rich was they invented a way to create photo plates where back in like the late 1800s it would take like, you know, a while for a photo plate to expose. Well, they invented the quick exposing photo plate, which then they sold it to Kodak, and that's kind of how they made a bunch of money. They also got into making Dan, I don't know, are you familiar with the steam cars, the Stanley steam cars?
Oh yeah, from like the early 1900s.
Yeah, that's who owned the hotel. Those
oh wow,
guys.
okay.
Yeah, they actually had a Stanley steam engine car in the in the lobby of the hotel.
Wow.
And so we did this tour, and they talked about how like Stephen King stayed in that room 217, and they also talked about filming like Dumb and Dumber there. But it was really cool. And then we went up to Mount Rushmore and then drove home. So
Had to feel good driving, right? I mean, people get on their planes and get everywhere in 2 hours and all that, but isn't it just cool to just take a nice road trip and just look at all the scenery and shit like that?
it is, but I will tell you that most of it is flat. Like there is not a whole lot going on between the two.
Oh, right. That area is.
Yeah, I mean, we stopped in Nebraska to visit my wife's aunt. We went to their farm, and that was really cool. And then we also we drove through South Dakota and then Wyoming.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot of wheat fields and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Dude, I was shocked with how many wind turbines I saw. Just fields and fields of wind turbines. But,
yeah.
But yeah, so it was a good time, and then came back and just got back into the regular routine. So, but yeah, so all right, well, I'll do a couple quick news stories, and then I'll kick it over to you guys, and then I got a couple of things that we can circle back and end the show with. So, let's see here. Let's see. September 23rd. Today was the anniversary. Or I'm sorry, September 27th. So we're coming up on it. The 35th anniversary of the disastrous Cleveland Balloon Fest of 1986. Do you remember this, Dan?
Just vaguely. I wasn't a part of it. I wasn't downtown when it happened, but I do remember hearing about it. I heard it was a pretty bad thing, but I don't remember the details.
How old were you in 86? You were got to be like 5 or 6?
Seven, yeah. I think. Yeah. I just turned 7 probably, yeah, at this time.
So 35 years ago next week, the United Way in the city of Cleveland released 1.5 million helium-filled balloons downtown in an attempt to set a Guinness World Record and kick off a non-profit fundraising season in dramatic fashion. Well, if anyone knows the story of this, it did a number on the local like water treatment and all this shit. Like, let's see here. Well, it says decades later, a United Way spokesperson summed up how the spectacle unfolded pretty well and bluntly, in an interview, stated, "We would not do a balloon launch ever again. There was no mistake on the lake anymore."
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Hence the reason it's called the mistake on the lake, shit like that.
Yeah. Multiple accidents were caused by drivers being distracted by the balloons. And most seriously, the U.S. Coast Guard, who on that day at the time were searching for 2 missing fishermen, cited thousands and thousands of balloons dotting the top of Lake Erie, complicating the factor in their mission. Oh, shit. You imagine, like, you're out there trying to find these 2 guys. There's 1.5 million balloons just bobbing on the water.
They never found them, right?
I don't think so.
They turned up dead, I think.
Well, yeah.
The balloons.
Yeah.
What's that?
They never found the balloons.
Yeah, right. So yeah, happy anniversary to that. Let's see here.
Good job, Cleveland. You've been banging out the great decisions for decades.
Boo, did you see this article? It popped up here on
No.
ifiscience.com. Oldest known human footprints in the Americas have been discovered.
I saw something. I don't think it was that article, but there was something like a couple days ago. So
Yeah.
it was probably just from a different outlet.
Saying here that the oldest known human footprints in the Americas have been uncovered at the ancient lake bed, which is known as today as White Sands National Park in New Mexico, dating back between 23,000 and 21,000 years old. The footprints shake up many wild established theories about how and when humans first arrived on the continent. 21,000-year-old footprints.
What was it like back then, Dan?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I wish I was around that long ago. I did read a story about them finding the first spider and some eggs where the spider was protecting the eggs, and it was in a tree stump or something. I can't.
Oh, man, he cut out again. I wonder if his phone's going to sleep and that's what's causing this.
Oh, maybe. I think that's what was happening with Natalie's before.
Yeah, remember? You can't like let the phone screen turn off.
Yeah. We'll get back to that story.
Yeah.
But actually, kind of about the same story you were talking about, does it say like where it was actually discovered? And was it almost like
White Sands.
no, I know that, but I mean like the actual location, like for something to be undisturbed for that long, like does it almost become like in like a natural kind of plaster, or
You know, I
almost
wonder
like
that, but isn't that also where they were doing nuclear bomb testing?
that I don't know. White Sands. Let's look that up. That it's possible.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Now we can.
I think your phone is like going to sleep, and that's
It's not going to sleep. I'm watching the screen the entire time. It's just I think I have to stay on the feed that we're on. I know what's going on. What I was saying was they found a spider. Did you read about this spider and some eggs that were 99 million years old? They
No.
were fossilized.
No.
Yeah. So
How big was it?
what, the spider?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I didn't.
Like
I
it
didn't
was
even
like
go
a,
into.
I'm just picturing like some prehistoric fucking mammoth spider. like
No. It wasn't like a size of a car or nothing like that. It was just a tiny spider, but it was protecting its eggs, and somehow it got fossilized in something. I didn't read the full story. I remember seeing 99 million years old. They thought.
99
crazy.
million year old house spider.
Yeah.
And yes, John, they do have a test facility out in White Sands.
That's what I was saying. Like, I wonder,
If it just turned that shit to glass.
that's what I'm thinking, but, highly unlikely.
That shit's kind of crazy, like, even in general, though, aside from that, like, when they find any, footprints that are anywhere, when they're like, we uncovered footprints, I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like, a footprint that is uncovered it just means it's covered in dirt. So it was then filled in by dirt. So, like, the base layer would have to be something that was almost, like, cementitious or, stays hard enough to, like, stay that form for thousands upon thousands of years. Like, that in itself is just fucking crazy to think about.
But how do they? I know carbon dating, that's their way of measuring this, but like, how can they be sure that like that footprint's that old?
That's what I was wondering about.
I guess like you would essentially just have to base it on testing the area, and then like if you're carbon dating something in the area, and then being like, all right, well, we're estimating that if this area is this old and it's undisturbed, I don't know, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but I mean, like, it's like you have a physical math can actually test, it's an impression. So like, I don't know.
They
I ain't
find
no
the
fucking
footprint,
scientist.
right? Well, that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to start trying to sound
I
smart.
told you. You know what they do is they take these things, they find them up, they grind them, and then they smoke them up.
Smoking that brain.
See, I've got a really good idea. Let's just smoke this footprint here. It's better with age.
Right.
All right. Last news story I got for tonight, because again, we all know what's going on in the world. We all know that guy is now being charged with killing his fiance, and that's a sad story. So, I mean, what else?
They didn't find him yet, did they?
No, but they said that he could survive in the wilderness. He had once he would brag to his friends that he did it for like 6 weeks at one point on like peanut butter and cheese crackers.
He just sounds like a crackhead.
Yeah, I did either of you guys watch any of that like police cam footage of those two?
I actually don't.
I did not.
I don't even know anything about the story. I know what you're talking about, but like that's as far. I never looked into it or nothing.
Well,
but oh no, just go on.
Well, to follow the trend of everyone else talking about this, and this will be my one mulligan for tonight. So long story short, Buddha, this girl Gabby and her boyfriend Brian, or fiance Brian, went on. They became like, they wanted to do like a YouTuber van life kind of thing. So they did this cross country road trip and just shared their journey on social media. Well, I guess they got pulled over in Utah about a month ago, and basically someone said that there was a domestic dispute. The car was swerving over all over the road. I guess they were getting physical while the dude was driving the car or the van, and initially they were going to potentially charge her with domestic violence charges, but they decided not to. They split the couple up for a night. The police took the guy to the hotel. They sent her on her way. Well, she disappeared and stopped posting on social media, within a couple days after that. Dude ends up coming home to Florida after being in Wyoming, where they last, had contact with people, by himself. Now, she lived with him at his parents' house, and he shows up at home without her. And then it wasn't until the 11th or the 10th or the 11th of September that her family filed a missing persons report. So obviously he then became a person of interest and he disappeared. So, and I think one person caught him on like those like cameras that hunters put out to monitor wildlife in the area.
Yeah, like trail cams and shit.
Yeah.
I saw that too.
Yeah. So somebody caught him on a trail cam, but they've been searching for this guy high and low in the Everglades for the better part of 3 days now, and they can't find him.
It is unbelievable how, with all the resources, the FBI, I mean, he was obviously a person of interest right away. How the hell did they let him? They knew where he was at one point, they knew he was at the house at one point. How the hell did they let him get away?
I mean, shit. Her family didn't report her missing until the 10th or 11th of September.
Okay, but I'm saying
and
they
her last
questioned him.
Correspondence with her family was like on the 25th or 26th of August.
Right, but when she was considered missing, they still questioned him, and he wouldn't cooperate with them, with the FBI and the authorities, which should have been that was a dead giveaway right there. He wouldn't cooperate with them. That's, yeah. And that's when he became a person of interest, which you would think by that point they'd have, they have the resources to keep an eye on this guy.
Right.
I don't know.
Even like the dude's parents, like, you didn't ask what the heck happened?
Right.
But yeah, really sad. So that's, all over the news right now. One part of me thought, okay, did this guy have enough time to get out of the country and go to Cuba where they won't extradite him to the U.S. Would Cuba? I don't think so.
Probably be pretty complicated.
Man.
Through,
I don't remember
the relations that Cuba has.
Policy.
Right. And that was my only thought. Either that or he had to have killed himself. I mean, if
I thought about that.
I mean, they're not picking up any heat signatures with these drones, these thermal imaging drones. So,
But he could have, hitchhiked with someone that doesn't know who he is and drove him, 500 miles away.
Yeah, true.
Says Cuba will still turn them over, but they do not have an extradition agreement.
Okay. Well, then maybe, yeah. That was the only thing I could think of where he could find sanctuary for long enough to not be extradited back to the States to then, hang out there for a couple of years and try to make it somewhere else in the world. But I don't know.
Let's also point out that the Everglades are like the fucking Wild West. So for all that motherfucker could have got eaten.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Alligator lunch.
Yeah. All right. The last news story I had for tonight was, have you guys seen the Farmer's Almanac prediction for this year? Coming
It's supposed to be a bad winter.
Yeah.
They've literally said that every winter.
Right.
That's what I know. Yeah.
Well, so it says here, much of the U.S. Has already been besieged by drought. Should expect more dryness, the almanac projects. Nearly all of California battling and raging the Caldor fire near Lake Tahoe is pegged for a mild, dry winter. They did state here also, though, that let's see. The almanac, which has often stirred up debate about its accuracy, suggests that this winter will be an icy combo of above average snowfall and below average temperatures in the New England area, as well as parts of the Appalachian region, the Ohio Valley, and the northern part of the Deep South. Boy, that's an oxymoron if I ever heard one.
At what point do you have to reevaluate what's average though? Because even in my lifetime, or our lifetime, the average temperatures have changed so much. Well, I guess I can't really say factually. It's not like I really sat down and was like, "Here we go. This is what the fucking temperature is every day." But you know what I mean? At least the feel of it. I know for sure as kids we had a shit ton of snow every winter.
Yep.
And lately, even the last 5 years, we really only get a couple days where we get fucking hammered with snow, and everything else is maybe a little bit here, maybe a dusting, maybe a little more than a dusting. But at what point do they reevaluate it? Because if you sit there and take average from the last 200 years, that the country's been around, you're not really playing with averages anymore.
And they've really only done statistical data on the weather for the last 120 years. So we have no idea what the weather was like over 120 years ago.
Yeah,
yeah, no, dude.
Well, we do, but they weren't keeping records.
Yeah, they
as
were.
much as they. About 120 years, I thought that's all it was that they were keeping.
They just said that this thing is 230 years old.
What thing?
The Farmer's Almanac.
Well,
Come on,
I'm
Dan.
talking about no. I'm talking about that's a prediction of the weather. I'm talking about the
No,
daily
a farmer's
reports.
almanac. A farmer's almanac is they literally log
The weather
sunrise,
data.
sunset. That's what it is. It's an actual log of everything
And
on
then
the
Were they
daily.
keeping? Go ahead.
Well, they keep the records so that they could go back and revisit it.
I know, but were they keeping? They were keeping records of every single day's high and low temperatures and rainfall and
that's what a farmer's almanac is.
No, but I didn't think they were keeping records every single day. Is what I'm saying. Does a farmer's almanac?
Yes, yeah, it
Fuck
does.
off.
That's literally what they use to. They would originally use to estimate time of sunrise, sunset, all that
Okay.
shit before everything now.
Gotcha. I didn't realize I never looked at one of those before, so I didn't know it did every single day. You could go back to December 7th, 1820, and say, okay, it was a high of, blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that did that.
See here's old Farmer's Almanac, one from 1792.
All right.
Okay, so tell me what the weather was that day.
Would you like me to pull this up? Yeah, it says the first one was published in 1792.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, bitch. I didn't know we were gonna get down to being some weathermen here. Let's see. I don't know. You might have to buy it.
You gotta buy that? That's a 200-year-old document right there. Well, and also I was curious. I said, how long has Celsius, been a form of measurement? In 1742, Swedish astronomer Andres Celsius created a temperature scale that was the reverse of the known scale. Was the reverse of the scale now known as Celsius. 0 represented the boiling point of water, while 100 represented the freezing point of water. So they just reversed it. But yeah, so I mean, another 50 years gone by, and you got the first Farmer's Almanac.
So I still am confused on how it knew if they print a farmer's almanac. How's it gonna? How does it know what the dates or the weather's gonna be? You know what I'm saying? That was my question. On a certain day, we know, okay, this was the high, this was the low, this was how much rain fell, or it snowed or didn't. They were keeping that data in the early 1800s. That's what I'm confused at.
So
I think
if you do it online, it only goes back to 1945. But if you get the physical copies, it'll go back further. But just for reference, September 22nd, 1945 is for Cleveland. Minimum temperature 50 degrees, average temperature 58.6, max temperature 69.1. Sea level pressure and dew point. Precipitation was 0 inches, 9.9 miles of visibility, no snow, 10.47 miles per hour wind speed, 14 mile per hour sustained gust, and
What year was that?
That's 45.
1945. Okay, here's the definitive answer for you, Dan.
Let's hear it. Yep.
Are you wait? What?
I said, let's hear it. I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, this is what I want. All right, so Buddha's probably so pissed. So scientists marked the start of modern global record keeping at roughly 137 years ago, 1880. So there you go.
I was fucking close.
All right.
So y'all apologize to me.
Why? You
Because
weren't
you're a
right.
bunch of bitches. I was right 130 years ago. I said 100.
Just because you were
150 or something.
around back then.
Oh, man.
Apparently on the maximum temperature on the day I was born was 83 degrees.
Oh.
Fucking hot.
All right. And that, well, Buddha, bring the hotness. I'm
just
spinning
did.
this onto you.
Now I'm fucking, hold on, I'm all excited about this weather shit. I was always told I came home in a blizzard, but if it was 85 fucking degrees, I'm going to call it bullshit, Mom.
You want to get her on the phone right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get her on the horn.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I would say May. I don't think it was a blizzard, but I don't remember that.
Well,
but-
shit, dude, it fucking snowed this May after my birthday.
Yeah, that's
Or
true.
It was either right after or right before, but
Did it snow?
I'm pretty sure we got like one more blast. That's how they get you.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that segue. All right, so I'm gonna tell this story about this lady named Anita Morjani, and John, I think like you and I have kind of had conversations, maybe all three of us had, about like the near death stuff, and like, do you believe it's possible to have like out of body experiences and shit like that, like, you know, when you're like clinically dead, but then you're brought back to life. I think we've talked about that on the show before, haven't we?
Yeah, and it's funny. I have something very similar tonight, so this will be good.
Well, you can't do yours. All right. So, this woman named Anita Morjani, it says she was expected to die at any moment because she had final stage of Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was being cared for at home February 2nd, 2006, when she just didn't wake up. She ended up falling into a coma, and her doctors basically told her husband that, you know, this is kind of it. Like, essentially, you know, get your affairs in order. This is pretty much the end of her life. But in just like as a last effort, you know, she was rushed to the hospital, basically just prescribed a bunch of medications, put on like a feeding tube and oxygen. Keep in mind, she's in a coma at this point with, you know, the final stages of Hodgkin's lymphoma. So the doctors worked on her just pretty much to keep her more comfortable, and like the family would come in and visit her, except, you know, sit down and talk to her and whatnot. But obviously she's in a coma. They couldn't really, she couldn't interact with them. But she claimed that while she was in this coma, she was able to see both the doctors and her family members, and she could actually hear the conversations between them, whether they were inside or outside of the room. And she claims that at one point her husband stepped out to discuss her case with her doctors. They stood about 40 feet from the actual hospital room, but somehow she was able to see and hear everything. So, and the article just kind of goes to state, like, from the scientific point of view, this is impossible because she was in a coma. And this is kind of where it goes to more like the spiritual side, where they're just like, you know, yeah, she was in a coma, but her soul was there, you know, and she was essentially watching from her, I guess her soul was watching is the best way to put it. So she also claims that at this point, you know, after overhearing the doctor, she crossed over to another dimension. And she goes on to explain that she just had this immediate feeling of being engulfed with, you know, just love, and that she was surrounded by spiritual beings. She said she saw her father and her best friend, both of whom had passed away. And in their presence, many things were revealed to her about the way she had been living life and had been continually denying her true self. And it just kind of said that, her culture and the way she lived her life just kind of led her down the road of just being completely fearful and not ever actually living her life, becoming a hypochondriac, always going out of her way, just to be a people pleaser, and just the constant like denial of herself is what was actually killing her, making her deathly ill. Once again, not the cancer, but keep that in mind. So anyway, it says at one point it was made very clear to her that she had to make the choice as to whether she was going to continue to live on or to just kind of, cross over and move towards death. Her best friend, who was one of the people that she allegedly saw during this vision, I guess you could call it. It says that her best friend she had died of cancer 2 years earlier and instructed her, you have to come here. This is as far as you can go, but now you need to go back and live your life. She says after that statement, she re-entered her body and was fully aware as to why she had cancer and what she needed to do to recover. And in quotes, I realized we create our own heaven or hell here on earth, and I learned the key ingredients for creating my own heaven on earth. Her doctors, family members, and friends were shocked when her body did a complete 180 and began to miraculously heal. It says when they ran, so obviously she woke up and they ran tests for the Hodgkin's lymphoma, and within a few days, she was well enough to talk and began sharing what had happened with her family members. They were surprised to discover that she could recall the conversations that she had overheard between the doctors and the family when, she was in a coma, and just the things that she had been told by her family, like talking to her while she was in a coma. And it says that a couple weeks later, after being tested, or after testing everything again, the Hodgkin's lymphoma had actually completely cleared and was like completely gone from her body. And there's like no medical explanation as to why this happened, other than the fact that the body just killed it itself. And now she goes on basically as like a motivational speaker and just kind of talks about like, spiritual healing, like how you need to live your life for you, just like pretty much being in like a better place, just like I said, like a motivational speaker. But the fact that this is actually documented, where she basically came into the hospital with Hodgkin's lymphoma and left without Hodgkin's lymphoma, is pretty remarkable. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the whole story.
It's crazy. It happened in 2006, so that's not like it was,
yeah, it ain't no old wives' tale.
Yeah, right. That's crazy.
It's funny you should mention. I was listening to one of these Reddit threads the other day, and or maybe it was today, but it came across like a similar. I wouldn't say totally similar, but a story where someone was at a bar with their friend, and it was this woman, and she just had this like uncontrollable urge to tell this random stranger that her knee hurt. And she kind of like dismissed it for a little while and kind of just tried to suppress this like desire to tell this person this when her knee didn't hurt and she just didn't know where it was coming from. So finally she breaks down and walks up to this total stranger, this guy at a bar. She says, "I'm sorry, I don't know you, but I have this like strong urge to tell you, and I don't know why, that my knee hurts." And the guy starts breaking down in tears and crying. And she's like blown away by what's going on. And it turns out that this guy's father had passed away, and they made a pact that if either of them were to die before the other, that they would tell the other that their knee hurt from the other side. So, I don't know. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Although I have I'm a skeptic when it comes to Reddit threads.
I love them.
Yeah.
Hey, anonymous guy on the internet, let me tell you a story.
Well, I mean, they're
no, I'm just busting your balls.
No,
I find that stuff interesting, but it's like, when you got it, when you want to go down the road of like a little bit of credibility, like the rando, John Smith 74 at Reddit, like you're like, this guy seems legit.
Yeah. To some degree I might be hopping on that bandwagon a little bit here in the next couple weeks, but only because it reminds me of that show Fact or Fiction Beyond Belief, where like they give you a story and at the end they'll kind of tell you whether it was real or not. But some of these people, if it's fake, they're actually pretty clever and talented with coming up with the story. But if it's real, some of the shit's kind of creepy. So
yeah, it's about the creativity. Some people have really creative minds and they, can come up with stuff just to put out there. And, like, again, I can't say for sure if it's real or not. I have no idea, but some people just have, creative minds.
Yeah.
Even like all that aside, it's like if that story helps somebody get through the day,
Sure.
there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's
Right.
that's a great thing.
I've heard
not everything has to be doom and gloom all the time.
Right.
This ain't my life.
I've heard stories too where they say that the light is actually a trick. So let me ask you this. You meet your end and you see the light. Are you going to it or are you going away from it?
Well, I could barely fucking see in the dark. I'm pretty nearsighted. So
I was going to say, if I
going
don't
to
have my
that fucking
contacts in,
light.
I'm going to probably trip and fall getting to it.
Right. I don't know. I mean, that's not even really that much of a hypothetical question because, like, based on what? Like, if I see as a fucking human, yes, I'm gonna go towards light because I'm a fucking human. But I mean, like, what are the circumstances? Are you assimilating or assuming that, like, okay, well, the light is gonna be the
I'm
quote
not asking
unquote,
you what
like,
you think the light is like.
well, no, but but it comes into play because if you're sitting there going, well, the light is going to be my rebirth or my new beginning or my quote unquote heaven, like whatever it is,
Sure.
and that's your beliefs, then I would think that the majority of people would want that. But I mean, what if you're talking to a person that says, well, the light is actually just the end. I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't think that any of that stuff exists. Then I think it would make sense that they're going to say that, no, I'm going to go back. I'm not done yet. That's what I'm saying. Like, me personally, I don't fucking know. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. I don't really care.
Bottom line is, too, what was the, did you pass away in your sleep or did you, were you, did someone put a gun to your head and say they're going to blow you away and it's the end of it and you get shot?
Do you have a
I'm just saying-
miserable
You have a
fucking
conscious-
existence?
No, the question was, are you? Let's say you blink and you're there now. What are you doing?
I don't know.
I got nothing. I don't know.
I really don't know.
What are you
got to
doing?
make a decision.
No, that's what
I'm gonna stay in the
purgatory's for. What if going into the light is actually John just coming out of the closet?
Well, no. I think we've talked about this too before, where
The baby theory?
yeah, where like people say when they die it's complete darkness and they feel like they're in a warm sleep-like state, where they also feel like they're suspended in, like, for lack of a better word, it's like jello, goo, ooze, whatever. But and then it sounds a lot like being a baby in a womb. So who knows?
The old amniotic sac.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if that was happening, I would have to imagine, man, we would have millions of people everybody would remember something of their former life. They would have to, you know what I mean? You would have to have a memory of your former life somehow if you got,
What if the trip down the
reincarnated.
birth canal does something with your brain?
Well,
Yeah.
that's another thing we've touched on before, though, Dan, is like, how much stuff do you actually, like, how many memories do you actually have of when you were, like, newborn? None.
None.
That's
Right.
So what if by the time, like, so you say that is a thing and you're born with those memories, but by the time you're able to actually recollect anything, the amount of like just environmental stimulation has pushed all of those memories out of your mind and had been starting to replace them with a new one. So by the time you're old enough to actually essentially like recollect anything, they're already gone because you now have a new childhood. And every now and then one of them slips away, or you catch a glimpse of it in a dream, you know?
Well, right. And think about like the last 3 weeks. You can't, how much of that can you actually recall?
True. Not a whole lot. But you're right. That's pretty heavy stuff right there. But I mean, when you explain it that way, I mean, there, who knows? There could be something to it. There's no obviously evidence of it, but there's no evidence just against it either, I guess, really. You know?
No. All right, cool. Buddha, thanks for the story.
Yup.
Nice story.
Yup. I got a couple other ones we could talk about too, or I could save them.
Well, let's kick it over Dan's way. Dan.
Yep. Yeah, so, well, my first story back, in case of all of our fans that listen in, I will be doing every week, while John and Buddha will be doing, you know, kind of weird, crazy, odd, scary, creepy crap.
Actually,
I've never been...
Sorry to cut you off real quick, but there was something I was actually going to share because you mentioned this, like all these fans. We've been getting a decent amount of traffic to the page over like the last month. To the point where like 1 week we had like over 1,000 views in one day, which is really weird.
Wow.
Yeah, like the last, the most August 29th, we had 350 in a day. Now, granted, it's not back like it was, 2.5 years ago. We were getting, I think our peak day we had like 10,000 in that one day. Is crazy.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah. Sorry.
Yep,
all right.
so,
Anyway.
Yep. So anyway, yeah. But for people that listening to that, we appreciate it. But Buddha and John will be doing the supernatural, creepy, crazy, weird murder stuff, all that stuff. I've never been too much into that. I enjoy talking about it, but my real love is cars, of course, and I'll be doing an installment every time that we're on dealing with the automotive industry. Mostly historic stuff, some stuff current, of course, but mostly the history of a lot of different things involving the car industry. So today's first installment, and John, I think you'll sort of like this because you will definitely be an expert more than me on the particular car itself. We're going to talk about John Zachary DeLorean.
Okay.
And basically just do a quick over.
Never
I'm not going to
heard
go.
of him.
Yeah, you never heard of him, huh?
No.
I'm just gonna basically do a quick overview. I'm not gonna go over everything of his life from birth because we would be here for hours and hours. It's gonna be actually pretty quick. I just want to touch on how extraordinary this dude was really in the automotive industry, and it's so much more of it has more to do with than the car itself, the DeLorean, the DMC DeLorean. That's just a small part of it. But basically, John DeLorean was born January 6, 1925 in Detroit, Michigan. And he started off in the automotive industry pretty early on. He started at a company called Packard, and he worked there for a short time. And then he got, a job offer into General Motors. And really, John DeLorean is, like I said, so influential in the automotive industry, even today. When he came into General Motors, number one, if anyone knows anything about GM, they know that General Motors had something called the Sloan Ladder. And what that was Alfred P. Sloan, who actually was one of the most influential CEOs of General Motors in the 30s, created the ladder of, Chevy's the working man's car, Cadillac is the top level for the celebrities and doctors. Buick is like the reserved style elegance, not as flashy as a Cadillac. Then you have Oldsmobile for the young, promising executives, and then you had Pontiac. Pontiac never had an identity back in the day before the 1960s. It was a little bit more of a flashier Chevy. Well, when John DeLorean came into, he was actually hired into Pontiac as an engineer into Pontiac, and he helped create Pontiac as the quote-unquote excitement division that it later became. And he did this by making a lot of changes. He saw what happened with the Mustang. He helped start the pony car era. I think he almost helped start it more than Lee Iacocca did, to be honest with you. A lot of people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But John DeLorean came into Pontiac, and he started making changes. He started increasing horsepower of these engines. He is the one that created one of the, most known performance cars, the Pontiac GTO. That was John DeLorean. Pontiac Firebird, a John DeLorean. The Pontiac Grand Prix, same thing. He helped create all these cars and turn Pontiac into more of what was pretty much a bland division into the excitement division. This helped him by all his goals and things that he did, achievements. Excuse me, that's what I was looking for. Achievements. He was hired in as the head of the General Motors, Pontiac division, the head of the division, which that's pretty big. At the time, he was the youngest. He was hired in at 40 years old, and up until then, that was the youngest ever any General Motors head division vice president was ever hired in at that age, the youngest age. And he, made all these changes. Later on, he came into, he was very successful in Pontiac, and he was so successful that General Motors decided to promote him into Chevy, the Chevrolet division. And even though Chevy is the working man's car, that is General Motors' bread and butter. It always has been, because they sell millions and millions and millions of units. One of the things that was interesting, though, at this particular time, John DeLorean was very flamboyant. He was considered a maverick, a rebel. He didn't look or dress or act like any other executives at that time in the automotive industry. He wore open shirts. He had long sideburns. It was an uncomfortable feeling with the upper brass of General Motors at the time, even though this guy was making all these, just record cars were coming out. The sales, I'm trying to say sales, were just record sales. But it was clashing.
He didn't fit the mold, but he was... they couldn't argue with what he was doing for the betterment of the company.
Correct, because he was just it was there on paper. The guy was just creating amazing cars. And at one point, it looked like he was going to actually become president of General Motors. Had he not quit when he did, rumor was that he was fired. He said he quit, but he was heading toward becoming president of GM, and that had the board of directors and some upper brass just not happy. They did not want this guy any higher than he was. But regardless, he went over to Chevy, and at Chevy, one of the things that, I did a story, on Type 3 3 years ago on the Ford Pinto, and what a disaster that car was with the exploding gas tanks and everything. Well, some of the people in the comments did make a good point. The Pinto did have its problems, there's no doubt. But in some cases, the Chevrolet Vega, which John DeLorean was part of, was 10 times worse than the Pinto. It didn't have exploding gas tanks, but the car was a disaster. It sold about 4 million units when it first came out, which is an incredible number of cars to be sold. But these cars had brake problems, transmission problems. They literally rusted on the showroom floor. They started rusting on the showroom floor. Can you imagine that? Before they were sold. Well, go ahead.
Really?
Yeah. The cars were, that was one of the first things that really killed General Motors and tarnished General Motors' reputation in the 70s. And the Vega really helped a lot of people start going over to the Toyotas and the Hondas. Because in the early 70s and mid 70s, the U.S. car makers workmanship was just atrocious. But this is not a hit on DeLorean, because he actually had great hopes for this car, and his ideas were actually going to work out to make this car a lot more successful than it was. But upper General Motors brass and all its intelligence jumps into this and says, "Look, we don't like some of your ideas. We're going to take control of the design of this car." The corporate management designed the car, not letting Pontiac, not letting Chevy design the car. They let the corporate management design it, which the corporate management had no idea what they were doing. They designed this car from the ground up, and it was cost cutting at its worst. Not to mention, DeLorean set up a 800 man quality control unit on the assembly line that he wanted to look over these cars. General Motors said, we're not doing it this way. They got rid of and laid off all those 800 people that he wanted. And what they ended up doing was they laid those guys off and had some sort of computerized robot way of looking and doing quality control. I'm not going to go into full details because we'd be here a long time, but it pissed off the remaining workers. So the remaining workers, of course, they sabotaged a lot of these cars. Leaving bolts loose, stuffing pop cans within the doors.
Heard a lot of those rumors, yeah.
Yeah, just sabotaging the hell out of the cars. DeLorean was, obviously not happy with this whole thing because when the car came out, it was a success. I mean, amazing success, but the car started failing because of reputation of almost every single model sold had to be recalled for some reason or another. Imagine that. Not just a few 100,000, not 300,000, literally almost all 4 million of these cars had to be recalled for one reason or another. And it absolutely destroyed and tarnished General Motors' reputation. John DeLorean, and again, there's a lot more to what happened, but he just got sick of the politics. He didn't like that lifestyle, what was going on within the company. So he quit General Motors, which, again, some people say he was fired, but whatever. He actually wrote a book in 1979 about his life in GM. But then, of course, starting around 74, he actually started DeLorean in I think it was 1974. But it took several years of designing and getting the parts and resources before the DMC actually came out in 1981. And John, I know you're going to be able to take over a lot of it. Go ahead.
Well, there was a lot of debate on where the car was actually going to be produced too.
Correct. I did read that. Yeah, a lot of debate on that. And obviously the car itself didn't come out till 1981. And it came out at a time, which is not DeLorean's fault, but it came out at a time that the automotive industry was pretty much at its worst. 81, a recession was starting. The unemployment was through the roof at the time. And cars themselves were just terrible. They were strangled to death by the emission controls that the government had put in the decade before. They were underpowered, ugly, just bland as hell. And the automotive industry didn't get out of that until like the late 80s and early 90s when cars started getting a tad bit more exciting. But when the DeLorean came out at that time, and it did not get good reviews. It got pretty much terrible reviews from the automotive press. The public really didn't know what to think of the car.
Well, yeah. What was it? 1981. It was like $25,000, which in 2021 money was $75,000.
Yeah. So right, exactly. So and that's the thing too. And it was just it wasn't a practical car for just an average everyday person. And it's the idea was there. It's a nice looking car. I don't know a whole lot about the car because it's not my style car. I've always been, as you guys know, kind of a luxury car, big boat type person. But the idea of how the car came about, and it wasn't till, and I know, at this point, we know where this is going. That DeLorean nobody would be talking about DeLorean now had it hadn't been for 1985 and Back to the Future. That absolutely transition. This is a generational thing. Back to the Future was so popular in that series that all the Back to the Futures that came out, that kids today watch that movie and know about it, and everyone knows what the DeLorean is. Just saying DeLorean, they think of Back to the Future. Had it not been for Back to the Future, sure, it would still have a cult following. There would still be some people that had them and that, but there's no way it would have the kind of celebrity image. And it's not the only car that was ever built like that. You can go back to 1975, and there was a car called the Bricklin.
Yep.
You can look it up.
Yep.
Huh?
There's a lot of debate in the DeLorean community, and it's almost, I don't want to say split down the center, but where people that are purists say don't touch the car, and then there are people that buy the car to do time machine conversions, and a lot of people say from the time machine point of view that had it not been for the movie, the car would just be another Bricklin. So,
well, right, yeah, and the Bricklin was designed a lot like it. It had the gull wing style doors.
Yep.
It was a little bit bigger. I mean, it was like maybe 10 inches. I think the DeLorean's 168 inches in length. I think the Bricklin's 178. So you got 10 inches difference in length. But the basic look of the car was
what?
very similar. What's up?
You said you got nothing. Never mind. I just want to interject the fact that there is currently a Fiero parked on my street.
Oh, speaking
I
of
swear
which,
to God,
that's funny.
it's been out there for like 2 days.
That is funny because that's a Pontiac, right?
Yeah.
We were just talking about Pontiac.
Yeah. But no, I mean there was that what else? There was the Bricklin. I forget, wasn't there another one too? Didn't AMC have something similar or no?
Well, AMC had a couple concept cars that had the gull wing style doors rather, but
Yeah.
there was other like specialty cars that came out that died very quickly.
Right.
But the Bricklin comes to mind because it looks so similar to the way
Yeah.
the Lamborghini Countach has the gull wing style doors, and granted, it's definitely not in the same design, same aura as a DeLorean, but still some of those design cues that came later, of course, that came after the DeLorean. But
Yeah.
but go ahead.
It's funny because like you watch like I said, we mentioned the price, $25,000 in 1981, $75,000 today's dollars.
Right.
I mean, some of these guys I know that have built their own time machine replicas, they were buying their cars anywhere between like 2001 and 2007, and they were getting these cars, dude, for like $8,000, $5,000,
Wow.
$10,000. Not all of them, but some of them. But now, because of we've hit a 35, we've hit the 35 year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
At 30 in 2015, 35 this past year. To get a decent stock 1981 5-speed DeLorean gray interior, I mean, you're going to pay anywhere between $25,000 and $45,000.
Yeah.
And that's for
incredible.
a car that might not be running.
Right.
There are horror stories of people buying one and wanting to drive it home when they buy it, knowing that they haven't replaced the fuel lines. And so the fuel injection lines were rubber. And so over the course of 35, 40 years, they dry rot out. Well, what happens when you're driving down the road with gasoline and your fuel lines are dry rotted out? It sprays gasoline all over the engine, and the engine catches on fire, and the engine's behind you, so you don't really necessarily know that it's on fire.
Right.
And so these cars, on their drive home, on their maiden drive home, burst into flames.
Yeah.
But
and electronics were atrocious too, right?
I don't know much about the electronics of the interior of the car. It'd be great to have my buddy Ken on, because he actually has a time machine, and one of my buddies that's coming down this weekend has one as well. It's just it's an interesting story, and when they were going to make the movie, that Ford had tried to buy product placement, and they were trying to get the writers Bob Gale and director Robert Zemeckis to switch the car, and they decided the product placement guy goes, I can get you $75,000 if you change the DeLorean to a Mustang, and Bob Gale goes, Doc Brown doesn't drive a fucking Mustang. So, but
that's funny. I did not know that. Yeah. And think about this. I mean, I know what a Mustang looked like back then, and if they're talking about an '85 Mustang, that sure would not have had nowhere near the same impact. There are, hundreds of thousands of those Mustangs were sold. That's no big deal. The DeLorean was so much more an exclusive car. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go with that.
Yeah. And yeah, I think my parents had an 88 Mustang. But yeah, and I mean, obviously the car doesn't drive well. I think when you do a time machine conversion, it's about another 700 pounds of weight on the car.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only does the car not really handle or drive well, then you also have all of that on top of it. And maintaining the car because of the rear engine deck, you have to kind of make it so that you can have all of that, but be able to access the engine. It's kind of a pain.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, it's, I've ridden in a time machine conversion, and I've also sat in a stock, and it's crazy because it's like almost like a fighter jet on the inside. It's so tight.
Right. It's very low to the ground too.
Yeah, it's such a cool car to ride it.
Have you ever driven one? You actually drove one?
I have not driven one. I've been tempted to ask, but like I said, I've ridden in one when I went to Fan Expo up in Toronto. My buddy Ken has one, and I rode in the passenger seat from his house to the convention center, and it's the coolest ride because everybody's like wants to take pictures. Yeah. Yep. But at the same time, it's also like, people pay attention to the road, please.
Right.
So.
You don't want anybody hitting that. Yeah. And it's just, I think, I mean, and I knew you would be able to, put a lot more information on the car itself. Cause again, I didn't really, this wasn't for me to research the car. I just wanted to talk about DeLorean, but that's good information. And I wanted to know a little bit more too about it. But, I mean, he was, of course, his personal life, he was married a few times. He had a couple daughters. And of course, there was a movie made about DeLorean himself, I guess. I never saw it, but there was an actual movie made.
Interesting story. A lot of the die casts and molds for those cars ended up in the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So what has been cast original, that is what is out there, that's all that's left. So.
Huh. Yeah, and of course, I didn't even go into, obviously, the way things ended up for him with the whole trafficking, setup, which he got out of, obviously. That was considered entrapment with the whole cocaine and the cocaine bust and all that with the FBI. That's how it, and that unfortunately, by that point in time, DeLorean, and by 1984, DeLorean was insolvent, and it was, the company itself was done, because everything had happened to him with the FBI and that. But, and I think a lot of stuff, there's conspiracy theories that go out there too that say that the big three were scared to death of this car, and they thought that, which I don't know that I believe that they thought, this was all set up with investors that set him up, because they were worried that this car would catch on.
I think after the initial reviews, all of that had went away.
Yeah.
Interesting fact too about the car after the whole company collapsed. The conglomerate that owns Big Lots actually bought all of the inventory up from the Belfast plant, and it actually was here in Ohio in a warehouse for several years before DeLorean in Houston got all of that inventory back and purchased it, and they're now a business. But so there's DeLorean.
Didn't someone buy the name DeLorean?
Yeah, and so DeLorean in Houston, I think, owns the DeLorean name. There's Houston, Portland, Orlando, or not Orlando, but like Florida, somewhere in Florida. And then those are like more like brand recognized affiliates. And then there's a guy in Talmadge that does like a lot of like if you need a what does the car sit on? Again, terrible at car parts, but what's the
chassis?
Yeah,
platform.
I believe he makes like a stainless steel chassis for.
Okay.
And so he's going back and remaking a lot of these parts, but like of high quality and high caliber. And people will actually send him their cars to work on, as well as these other places throughout, as well as these other places throughout the country. But yeah,
gotcha.
It's a cool story.
In 1999 he declared personal bankruptcy, which he was fighting, I think, 40 legal cases, still stemming from the collapse of the DeLorean Motor Company, and he had to sell his mansion, his estate. which that, I guess at that point Donald Trump bought that estate, and that's what he converted to a golf course. And you know, it's kind of a sad. I'm sorry.
Where at?
Where did I read that?
Was it in Detroit?
No. Boy, I think it was in New Jersey.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Someone might correct me on that. I did a lot of research. I believe it might have been New Jersey, but someone could correct me. I know he passed away in New Jersey, though. He died on March 19th, 2005. He was 80 years old. He passed away in New Jersey, had a stroke. Yeah. So, you know, in his ashes, he's actually his tombstone has a DeLorean sports car with the gull wings open. You probably saw it, right?
Yeah, I've seen it. And they only made 9,000 cars.
Yeah. Which is, in automotive terminology, that's nothing. That's like nothing at all, 9,000. Yeah. So
they seem to think that there might be like 6,000 left in existence.
Wow.
It's crazy to see, like, I've seen a couple where people have them in a barn for 4 years. Like, how does that end up in a barn?
Mm-hmm. They want to just hang on to it. Yeah. You know, then that's terrible. That's the worst thing you could do to the car, because everything rots. The entire car rots to hell, you know, so that's just, I mean, it's useless to do that to a car. But, yeah, so I just wanted to, you know, bring out, that's pretty much the story there. I just wanted to kind of talk about the man himself and again, how influential he was in the automotive industry and, you know, other than DeLorean itself. So every week I'll be doing these automotive historical things and hope people like them.
All right. I suggest that you do one on what happened to... I think it's in a museum somewhere, but like the Ford Bronco that OJ was driving.
Oh, yeah. I thought about that one.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting story. What happened to that car.
That was actually not even his. He had one just like it. It was that...
save it for an episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I could.
Yeah. There was that one, and then what are some other famous cars that have been like involved in crimes?
Well, yeah, the Princess Diana Mercedes. It wasn't a crime, but she was killed in it.
Yeah. We've done the Mansfield.
Like a hell of a lot of like a crime.
We've done the Mansfield car.
Yeah, and then James Dean.
Yeah. Did we? I don't know if we ever released that episode.
No, I don't think we did. I think that was one that actually, for some reason, never got released.
It got lost, I think, when one of the hard drives crashed.
Yep.
You could do one on the Killdozer.
What's that?
Maybe I'll do one on that then. If you guys don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know what you're even talking about. So you do it.
All right. Now I'm interested. I had a couple of Reddit stories I wanted to read tonight. You guys interested in that, or do you want to move on to something else?
Whatever. I don't care.
Well, let me do this one called the Coma story. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this story. It's a little lengthy, so I'm going to try to read it and try to pace myself and read it well. It's about 3 or 4 paragraphs. So it's a famous story on Reddit, and so I'm just going to read it, and then we'll kind of react to it. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. This story is called "A Parallel Life Awoken by a Lamp," and all right, so it says, my last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. Note he was about 325 pounds and I was 120 pounds. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and she dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job, and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day, while I was sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like it was inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base with a red gold trim on 4 legs and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about the lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first, and soon I stopped that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try and talk to me. By this time, my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life was not fucking real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper, and it was inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective, and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises, and I became aware of the pain. A shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth." And I opened my eyes and I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up, walked me across the sidewalk and grass, and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. He seemed he didn't care, he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive and give me CT scans and shit. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss. Was that a fart, dude?
No, that's the chair.
Oh. I went through 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane and would cry myself to sleep, hoping that I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son. Usually just a glimpse of my peripheral vision. He's perpetually 5 years old, and I can never hear what he says. So, but yeah, crazy story. Like, it's to think that like you could live like a whole life in a dream, and wake up and not realize that like it was not real to begin with. I've read the story several times, and it's one of these creepy stories that kind of like rocks you to your core.
It'd make a damn good Twilight Zone movie.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that I've actually read that one before. There's like another iteration of that exact story too. But there's multiple stories of like that similar thing going around. And I actually read a book. It's called The Spirit Clearing.
Okay.
And that's basically what it is. The book is fiction, but basically this dude, he's hanging out with his friends, his buddy, and they get into a car accident, and they're coming around a curve. They get into a car accident, and whatever, like it's really bad wreck, blah blah blah. But that's just kind of like how the story starts out, and then it just goes on to where like he meets this woman, and then they get married, and then like he has a kid, and then like he meets the only guy that he's really like friends with is like a much older guy, and he asks him to be in his wedding, and then like that guy dies of a heart attack, and all this crazy shit happens, and then like in the end of the book, he actually ends up being like woken up by the paramedics, and that entire 20 years or whatever of his life was him being unconscious and then waking up and realizing that the two people that he was friends with in his like unconscious state was actually the two people that he had just killed in this head-on collision, and like his best friend who was with him in his unconscious state actually died in the car wreck when it just happened. Like basically that story is fiction, but it's the same premise of the one that you just told, where you can live your entire life in essentially in a moment, being unconscious. And like another story that I read, not a fiction story, but an actual story, is this dude, similar thing, goes through this whole life of, getting married, having a kid, just essentially life in general. And then I think he like went, I don't remember if he went to the doctor because he was having headaches or it was something. And it turns out that he actually was on the ground being woken up by the paramedics as they were like trying to resuscitate him because he had just gotten jumped like at like a college campus or something like that. And he just went into like just spiraled into depression. And it was the same thing where he's like, I'm literally like picturing this woman that I was married to, and I can picture my kids, but the crazy thing is like they never even existed.
Right.
It was all just while I was unconscious.
Hollywood kind of took a thing on this. I mean, it's funny, but since I'm so ancient, I do remember these TV shows. Remember Bob Newhart show?
Yeah.
You guys, okay.
Yeah. Well, the joke was that one of the shows was a dream of the other show.
Yeah, exactly. He had a '70s show called I think it was just called Newhart, and he was like a doctor, and that show was totally unrelated to the '80s show. But then the '80s show started. It was very successful. The series finale, the entire decade of that show was a dream. He woke up, and it was kind of like the original. It was from the '70s show. He woke up from when that ended, and it was the entire '80s show was a dream.
Right. Yeah. That was pretty clever.
It was very clever.
Yeah. That was. Talking about Hollywood too. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, 2 episodes of The Sopranos is very similar to this, where after Tony gets shot by Junior, he
way to ruin it, dude.
Are you watching it?
No.
All right. Well, let's say the show's been out for like 20 years now. If you haven't watched it by now, but Tony gets shot by Junior and he goes into a coma. And when he goes into this coma, like the next episode is him waking up in this hotel room, and his New Jersey accent's gone. He's Tony Soprano, but it's more like he's Tony Soprano if he never went into the mafia life. But there's signs of like the real world bleeding into this coma. And at the very end of the episode, you see he gets to this house, which he thinks is a family reunion for who he's being mistaken for in this coma. And his cousin is like greeting people, and he had killed his cousin earlier in an earlier season, and is played by Steve Buscemi. But it's like so great because like anytime Buscemi's in something, he just steps up to the plate and just knocks it out of the park. But it's like, it's this family reunion, and he has his briefcase with him, who he thinks that this briefcase is not his, and he's trying to go and find the guy that the briefcase belongs to, but he doesn't want to give it up, and he wants to get his briefcase back. Well, the briefcase is symbolizing his business and like his mafia life. And so he gets to this house, and this house is filled with light, and it's kind of in the middle of the woods. And he goes, "They're waiting for you." And it's like, "Who?" Your family. And as he goes to walk in, he can kind of see his mother from the doorway, but not really. And Buscemi goes to take the briefcase. He says, "You can't take business in there with you." And he's about to enter, but he gets like this strange feeling like where he's going is not really heaven, but it's hell. And that's where all of his relatives and all the people that he did wrong with are like living in hell. And if he goes into this house, he's going to enter into hell. And so, but I always liked it because it was like very, I don't know, like things like that get you thinking, especially like all the, like this existentialism in like this writing, and like the sub meanings and how things are related, but they're not like apparent, like very clearly related. You have to kind of draw your own conclusion. And so I always thought that was by far my favorite episode. I know a lot of other people like it when like Pine Barrens, and they say that's the best episode, but I would have to say episode 603 is my favorite. So a couple of these other Reddit stories here, and these are just glitch in the Matrix stories. Are you guys familiar with the term the glitch in the Matrix?
Yeah.
Not really. Not
All
really.
right,
No.
so there are a ton of Reddit threads out there where basically people post what they call glitch in the Matrix, where they experience deja vu or something like really creepily like happens. There's like a lot of coincidence or whatnot. And so again, are these fact? Are they fiction? It's up for you to decide, but they're still kind of cool and interesting to hear. So I've got 4 here, and I'll kind of go through them really quick. So one here says, I was watching TV when I was about 11 and I had this sudden compulsion to turn off all the lights in the house. I literally jumped up and ran from room to room. When I got to my bedroom on another floor, I saw that my curtain had blown over my desk lamp and was smoking. It had caught fire the second I got to it, and I managed to put out the fire just in time. So you ever get those weird urges to do things for no apparent reason, but when you did them, it made sense?
I don't know. I mean, I might have, but I don't.
I think that's called OCD.
Yeah.
Which I do have.
Oh, boy. You and me. All right, here's the next one. It said, I had a dream about marrying my husband before I knew he even existed. Even in my dream, I was asking this even in my dream, I was asking people who this person was, and when I actually met him, I had to refrain from freaking out. My mom had some friends that I've known my whole life. They are her age. My mom was single, so they used to babysit me sometimes. I went over to their apartment for Halloween when I was 4, and they took me trick-or-treating around their apartment complex. Fast forward 27 years, and I met a girl I'm married to a girl I met in college, who had been born in the city that I was raised in, but almost immediately moved away, was less than a year old. She lived in other parts of our large metro area growing up. She heard my mom and I mention these family friends occasionally, but never met them. I don't know why it's there. So basically, this person and their wife throw a Christmas party to celebrate their new house. My mom asks if she can invite said friends, so I said of course. They arrive and we are getting to chatting, and they ask about my wife's unusual maiden name and if she knew people who have the same first name as her parents. These family friends of ours were her parents' neighbors, as they share a wall literally only the other door on the second floor of the same building. At the time my wife was born, I'm 3 years old. I'm 3 years, 9 months older than my wife. Our family neighbors had an 8-month-old infant when we went trick-or-treating at their house. I met my future wife as an infant out of total happenstance before not meeting her another 18 plus years later. So
I could see that happening.
But they met in college, like far away from where their home was, their home city.
Yeah, that's that is weird.
You ever see that there's like a photo or something from like Disneyland where like a dude and his wife are in the same picture,
Yep.
but they're
Seen that.
not together?
Exactly. Yes, I was going to say there's that. People are in bars that never met before.
Or what about the people that have like, they find like their doppelganger,
right?
And it's like completely random.
Yeah. Here's another one that's kind of weird. Visited my hometown after 15 years. Went directly to a child friend's home. It was locked. I thought he was out or something, but as soon as I turned around, he was standing right behind me. We hugged. Bro time ensued. He asked me to come inside after he unlocked the door. His house was spooky. Things were broken. Furniture was covered and dusty. I said, "What's up with this shit?" And he told me he didn't have time for it as he was busy. I didn't care really. Just wanted to catch up on all the shit from our childhood. Talked about everything from childhood to adulthood. And after a few hours, I told him I'd be going to my cousin's home to stay the night. He insisted I stay the night, but I really didn't want to spend the night in the house as it was too spooky. So he told me to come back here tomorrow, and I said definitely I will. I bid him a goodbye. When I went to my cousin's house, at dinner I told them about my friend and his house. They looked at me with terror and disbelief. My cousin said something like, "Don't fuck with us," and I was surprised as to why he would say that. They told me that the friend had died in a car accident 10 years ago. His parents and family had moved elsewhere, and the house had been locked since. I have no idea what the fuck happened. I was shitting bricks. To this day, I don't know if it was a dream or reality, but still, I'm just glad that my friend, or my ghost, or my imagination caught up with me.
Mm-hmm. Bizarre one.
All right, last one here. It says, I don't believe in anything paranormal, but this really did happen to me. I used to have a recurring nightmare of the World Trade Center Twin Towers falling down and crushing on me. Then 9/11 would happen. I would have the thought that I had some deja vu, but I told many of my friends about this dream long before 9/11. After 9/11, I never had this dream again. So that's a crazy one too, because like, imagine like having that as deja vu and then it happening right in front of you.
What's even more strange is the minute you said World Trade Centers and 9/11, I just saw a old TV show just flash the World Trade Centers right on my TV here.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it is kind of common right now.
Yeah, well.
20 years later.
Yeah.
So that's all I got from the Reddit post tonight. Again, I love stories like this, so, you know. But if you guys think it's boring, I won't do them.
I think most of the shit you do is boring.
All right. Well,
I do like listening to them, though.
yeah.
It's a valid
I like
response.
listening just to figure out like which ones sound completely out of, off the wall and which ones are like, yeah, that could have happened.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, like, how can you argue with someone when they say they have a dream? You know what I mean?
Right.
But then also, like, the story where the guy says that he hung out with his dead friend, he's like, maybe it was a dream and I'm just going crazy, The only way you can't argue it is if that person or man or woman, whoever had the dream about the World Trade Centers, literally told other people that, before 9/11, man, I'm always having this dream that the towers are collapsing on me. And you have 3 or 4 witnesses are like, they told me this every single time and then it happened. Yeah.
Then they become a suspect.
I've had nightmares for years where I'm going to die in or I've had nightmares where like I'm in plane crashes and I'm always afraid to get on a plane because I'm like, is this the one where I, where I live this dream? It really freaks me out.
I see a lot. I have a lot of dreams that I'm not in the plane, but a lot of times I'm witnessing a plane crash.
I've had a couple of those too recently.
Yep. And I had those long before 9/11. I mean, I've had those even when I was a kid, like watching some kind of big shuttle or plane, just get not really near me, but just in the distance. Like I wasn't in danger, but it was just crashing, and I'm like, wow.
Can you see the fireball and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I had one the other day where like I was out and it was just like near a field and I saw it happen, and we were going up and trying to pull people out, and one of them was like one of my cousins, and he was just like,
oh, wow.
What's up, dude? And I'm like, what do you mean? You just came out of a plane crash. So I don't know, but I've had a lot of dreams about plane crashes, and I'm always afraid to get on a plane and fly because I'm like, did I have a premonition of this? Those damn Final Destination movies.
I won't have to worry about that premonition because I ain't getting on one. So
you're all right. So you're gonna tell me that you're what, 42 now? 41?
Yep, 43.
43.
Yeah.
My God, has it been that long?
Yeah.
Man. So you're gonna tell me that you're probably a third of the way through your life, maybe just over a third, and you're not gonna fly at least once.
Well, I was in a plane when I was younger. I was in a plane. I was like probably 7 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember bits and pieces of it. I don't remember a lot of it, but I have no desire to go up in a plane for any reason at all. I mean, if I had to for some reason and it was like a life and death type situation, yeah, I'd get on a plane. But for, I prefer to drive somewhere because I love road trips. I love seeing the scenery. If I need to be somewhere in a big hurry, like on a vacation or something, then it's not going to be a fun vacation if I have to be there in a hurry, if I can't take my time.
What if you got like access to like some Cadillac event on the West Coast and you had only a day to get there and you had to fly? Would you do it? No,
because it wouldn't be. There's no way it wouldn't be worth it that much for me to go to an event.
Not even for Cadillac.
Now, if you told me, hey, you have to go to the West Coast to sign some paperwork because you just won, $10 million or $15 million, but you have to go to the West Coast by this certain time or it'll default. Well, guess what? I'd probably get on a plane and do it.
Yeah. Have we reached that low in show content that we're doing scenarios about getting Dan on a plane?
I don't think we've even ever peaked.
Yeah, that too. Buddha got on a plane for 15 hours to go to Rome. I couldn't
That's
do
right.
that.
Something like that. I think
Let's
it was
go-
13.
How did your
but it
how
was
did your
fucking
miserable
long.
how did your miserable ass sit on a plane for that long?
Sleep as much as you can.
Dude, that's going on, what, 10 years ago now, huh?
Probably.
I know, it's crazy. I was finding, like, pictures of us doing glass curtain tracking. I'm like, man, that was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Fuck. I'm old. I keep coming to that
Yeah, I
realization.
feel it.
Was it that you said 15 years ago you guys went? Or 10?
No,
So,
10-ish.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, all right, Buddha, you want to close it down for tonight?
Yeah, I think I had a pretty fucking long week.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll shoot back to here to do this again next Thursday night. But Dan will be back again.
Yes, he will.
Yeah. Enjoying the fall weather. Let's see in here. Gotta turn this thing up. There we go. Yeah. This is the part of the show where I kind of kill time right before the big build up. So, but yeah, next Thursday, tune in at 8 p.m. And if you're here because of an older video of ours, thanks for tuning in. That's really all I got. Dan, Buddha, you got anything?
I'm good.
All right. Well, from the Mistake on the Lake, for Dan Rady, Steve Gibson, Alex Benzinski, Gary Nagel, Rob Taglarina, all the original, you know what? Everybody, the entire world,
Everybody in the world.
everybody ever. For the Mistake on the Lake, this is Type 3 TV. Say goodnight, Buddha.
Good night, Buddha.
There we go.